Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and my very special guest, Mike Houston, today. And he's with Prevere at Northgate. And good morning, Mike.
Good morning. Hello, everybody.
And we're super excited to have you on because we're going to talk about some things that, sometimes our clients have to think about, and that's should I move mom to memory care? And so, because I know that sometimes the conversation comes up and they try to put it off as long as possible. But just so that our clients have a real clear understanding, because we like to be, as make things as easy as possible. Let's go simple, and let's say, tell our listeners, what is memory care and how does it different from assisted living? Because a lot of people think that's the next step.
Well, with memory care, there's really a couple of things. You can have the long-term care that usually is paid by Medicaid or long-term care insurance and things like veterans benefits. But also you have what we do, and that is private pay. And so that is for people that have memory impairment to the extent where it interferes with everyday life. It puts the person in danger. They're not able to make the kind of decisions that someone who's living independently, and it becomes maybe a hazard to themselves to be by themselves. So you would think about a place that is what we call secured, that people are taken care of, and that's everything from their ADLs and their activities of daily living is what ADL is, to feeding, help, bathing, helping with laundry, helping participate in activities, those kind of things. And really how that differs from assisted living is just the memory care part, where someone who is in assisted living maybe needs a little bit of help with ADLs, but maybe they have some kind of physical impairment, like a hip replacement or back surgery, and they need assisted living, but they can also stay independently in their rooms. So that's the basic difference.
And so, so some clients are in facilities that, maybe they're independent living, maybe assisted living, and then memory care. And some people are just at home and then end up in memory care.
That's right.
How do you know when it's the right time to move to memory care versus, maybe assisted living?
Well, that's a great question, and it's not an easy one in every case. But loved ones, excuse me, or caregivers that are taking care of this person will notice some kind of decline. And what you want to do is you want to anticipate before that person gets in a position where they could hurt themselves or others. For example, driving with dementia is not a good thing. And so you'll notice things like, can't find my keys, and that happens quite a bit. I put them in the microwave, or think odd behaviors will start to appear. And there's people want to wait to the last minute, but that's really kind of dangerous. We have an example of a gentleman that got underneath the sink and drank the Drano and was passed away from that. We have a lady that moved in here that was into independent living, but she liked to walk. And there's one time she didn't make it back, and they had to use the police helicopter to find her. And so you want to anticipate before behavior gets such where the safety's an issue.
Yeah, we call those runners. And so I had an instance where a client came, this was years ago, And he said Adult Protective Services contacted me to, make arrangements for, for my loved one because, police were picking her up because she'd wander off and then she didn't know, where she was. So he makes all the arrangements and he takes her home. And and she gets out of the house and he goes, I don't know how she got out. The doors are locked. We've got monitors, we've got alarms, I don't know how she got out. And so they got her back, and then he found out. He sends me a picture. That little woman was climbing the gate. You know how the slats in the gate? She was literally climbing, and he was videotaping her because he caught her climbing the gate, going over, and he called me and he goes, I can't keep her at home anymore, And so because she's, even just, letting her run around outside, if she's faster than, any one of us, we've already lost her. And so, so they had to move her at that point in time. So, usually those are the ones those are the obvious ones, when you know that it's time. And so what 3 things should someone look for, when choosing a memory care facility? Because this is important, because it's not like your loved ones can tell you there's a problem because they may not know there's a problem. So what kind of things should they be looking for?
Well, if someone's lucky enough to have a family member that pays close attention to their behavior, don't ever underestimate research. And it's not always the case, I see. And there's some people are looking for the lowest price, or they're looking for what's closest to me. But really, in healthcare in general, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you have to be a good advocate for your loved one. And so really the most important thing is care. And care starts with leadership. I definitely want to meet the leader, and I definitely want to look up the company. I definitely would like to check out the Google reviews and the website. Those are all important things. But besides that, a philosophy of care is important, because that's something that people don't necessarily intuitively know about working with people with dementia. You can take things very personal, and then you interact in a personal way, and that's not going to change anything. And it's just going to agitate the resident and the staff member. So we have something called Cherish, and it's a philosophy of care. It's something we train our staff on. We talk about how to redirect and what the appropriate way to handle an incident, and how to use things. We get a whole storybook from the family when a resident moves in, and these are all talking points. Their brother, their mom, their where they grew up in Colorado. We use these talking points to redirect. Also, it's important to learn when you're giving care, when someone's in pain and they're not able to tell you. So you recognize those signs, but you got to teach people how to do that. So we have ongoing training. Also, I'd ask about the food and the activities, depending on what order is important to you. We have a sous chef that spent 17 years in casinos doing all that nice food, and has worked in some of the nicest places in the city for assisted living and memory care. So we're real fortunate to have Shantae. We also activities, interaction, how to engage people, arts and crafts, music is important, just body motions, full range of motion exercises, things like yoga and dancing. If you're in a wheelchair, there's still some dancing you can do. But we use these things to keep our residents happy. We give them with the attention we give them. And then when they're having a bad day, having options to redirect and places to go to just get their mind off of whatever is confusing them or agitating them. So I would check out all those things. I'd also interview other staff members not just the marketing guy like me. Talk to the executive director, talk to some of the caregivers. If there's a family that's willing, that has a loved one there that stayed with you, ask them if a new member that's looking could give them a call. Talk to people when they're visiting in the building if they're there, and just ask those hard questions. Are you satisfied? What are some strengths? What are some weaknesses? And do your homework. It's kind of a practical thing, but a lot of people just, they're to their wits' end, and they just want to deal with this situation and get it under control, and they don't necessarily spend the time to make sure it's a good decision. There's lots of people coming into places and then 3 months later moving. And frankly, that's hard on someone with dementia to make all those changes. So it's really important to get it right the first time.
Yeah, I tell clients to, when they're looking at facilities, to go 3 different times. Go right before lunch, because
There
usually
you go.
eat your lunch, because we want to make sure the food's good. That's important.
That's very important.
To go in the evening and on the weekend, because there's different staff, and to talk to as many family members that you can find that says, how is the facility? How is your loved one
That's
taken
right.
care of? Because food is big, because if your person's not eating because they don't like the food, that's a problem.
It is a problem.
So you kind of want them to be able to do that, and we also kind of encourage clients to think about maybe taking them for tours before they get to that point, so they can see if it's something that they might like, if they couldn't stay home anymore. I think that's real helpful as well.
That's right.
And so
we encourage people to come to a meal with us, or an activity, or both. Or also, we have the option for respite. We have a furnished room or two that people can come and stay a few nights or a week, and just get a feel for if they're acclimating well, and if that seems to be a good fit.
well, that's good. Kind of a try it before you buy it kind of thing, right?
Well, especially with people are often very reluctant to make this kind of a move, and yet if you I tell people that I hear their story, they'll come in my office, and we'll meet, and for 30 minutes I'm hearing this horrible story about how this person had this wife or son doesn't really have a life anymore, and I'll tell them, listen, if you can do this, you'll get your life back.
Yeah.
And you'll get your peace back, and the agitation that is focused on you taking care of mom or dad or whoever, all of a sudden that comes on us, and we're trained to deal with it. And then when you come as often as you want, you will be a welcome guest, and it will be that relationship somewhat restored as much as possible. And it really, you talk to someone 3-4 months down the road, and they're like, wow, that was just a great move, and I'm so glad we did that. And so we see those stories every day.
So how long does it normally take someone to adjust to a memory care facility? Because I've always been taught that you don't want to move them a lot, because it's an adjustment, So, but how long do you typically see someone take to adjust?
Kim, in my experience, it looks like it takes about 2 hours for someone coming in to feel comfortable with their surroundings. First of all, they get lots of attention. There's new things. It's, for most people, they're having a good time when they, we try to get them to come in right before a meal, or right before an activity. And then they get to meet everyone, and we take them around, show them the building. So that seems to be about 2 hours. And then on top of that, it takes about 2 weeks for someone to see themselves as a member of our community, and that to be their home. And so there are exceptions. Everyone's different, but that seems to be kind of the rule of thumb for me.
Okay, cool. And so what should the staff do to help a new resident, and what can the family do to help?
Oh, those are good questions. And so we, with our staff, have a move in. We call it a tuck in, and it's just all hands on deck. We're giving them lots of attention, staying with them in their room for a little while, and if unless the family would like time with them alone, and then after they leave, we just stay with them. We get them to all of the activities. We kind of show them around. We do tuck-ins at night, but it's a lot of extra attention right at first. Too many new people seems to be confusing. So usually there's one person that spends the majority of time, so they get to trust that person. And it's kind of almost like an assignment, but sometimes the assignment doesn't work, and that person can become all of a sudden the bad guy for whatever reason. But a lot of times it's just in their mental capacity. There's something going on that maybe reminds them of someone, who knows. But then we'll switch people until they find someone they're comfortable with. And almost every one of our residents has that one person that they seem to like the most. So we pay attention to that. As far as family members, what they can do is make sure that they bring the favorite stuff from their room, from their house, that they can put in their room, and to make it as familiar as possible, so it reminds them of home. A bedspread and our pictures, art, just the things that are familiar to someone with dementia is very important. So they can set that room up in a familiar way. That's the best. And then also, we tell some families that are having trouble with that loved one. There's maybe the blame, or just when that person with dementia sees that person, it triggers them. Some of those people we ask to stay away for a couple of weeks, and then come back, and it's the reset button. And then all of a sudden you're welcome guest again, and you can resume that relationship. And some people, there's nothing like that going on. So we encourage them to come as often as they want to. A loved one can bring their person with dementia out of the building whenever they want to go to meals or activities, or even stay a weekend, go on vacations. We just sign in and sign out, and make sure all of our staff are aware of that, and just kind of work with the staff to kind of listen to their instruction. This is our home, but it's also your home. But because there's a lot of other people and moving parts, we have to work together. We have to communicate as much as possible. We have our own medical director, Dr. George Valdez, one of the best in the business. He and his nurse practitioners come every week. We suggest that our residents come on board with him. He really knows dementia. He really knows those kind of medications. He works with a group called Psych Plus. These are neurologists and psychiatric physicians that know how to, someone's out of whack, there's some decline. We were able to bring people that are able to figure those things out, and make sure that we're keeping up with what's going on.
Well, that's perfect. And because having good medical staff and having the ability to to adjust meds and things like that while they're there, that's huge.
Very important.
A lot of people don't have that, so that's good. And a lot of times you don't have that at home, so you have to take them out and try to hang on to them and make sure they stay where they're supposed to, and those sort of things. And so Mike, if somebody wants to contact you, tour the facility, check you guys out, how do they find you?
Well, our main number to the building is 281-315-1450. So that's the first way. My cell phone, and I answer my phone any time of day or night, is 832-512-4659. And then my email is M as in Mike, my last name Houston, at Proveer, PROVEERSL, like seniorliving.com.
And so perfect. And so that's awesome. And I hope that we get a chance to get out and tour your facility. And,
Yes, we'd love to have you. We love showing off.
oh, there you go. And so, all right. Thanks so much, Mike, for being on the show. You enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.